Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NLL Live for Week 10. I'm your host, Mark Powers. Making his triumphant return after a little bit of an illness, we got the man himself holding it down out on the outskirts of Brooklyn, New York, Connor Wilson. How the heck you doing, man? You feeling better?
Amazingly, I went down to New Orleans last weekend, and I came back rejuvenated. I don't know anybody else in the world who can say that, so I've got superpowers, baby.
That's right. You got that good juju, right?
You know it, playing
Nice.
lacrosse, having a good time.
And I think everybody's got a flash of him. We have an exciting guest coming on tonight. He previously helped Connor and I out when we were doing a live show for the NLL draft this year. He's the former OLA co-MVP. He's an emerging star playing for his hometown favorite team growing up, the Buffalo Bandits. We got Dhane Smith joining the program. Mr. Smith, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Where are you coming to us from tonight?
This is Kitchener, Ontario, my hometown in Canada, Ontario.
Excellent, and we'll be sure to talk about Kitchener soon enough. It seems like you guys have a pretty strong Kitchener Kodiaks connection going on with the Bandits this year. So Connor and I would be remiss not to talk about that. That's for sure.
Looking forward to it.
Good. Well, I hope you're looking forward to this. I don't know if you've seen the show before, but normally how we start things is with a little bit of a lightning round or an icebreaker where we like to ask you some fun or some kind of silly questions and some kind of basic lacrosse-oriented questions. So we'll do that for about 3 minutes. You ready?
Yep.
Excellent. So, Dhane, who was your lacrosse idol growing up?
I'd have to go with Billy D. Smith, my cousin, who plays on the Buffalo Bandits as well. Looked up to him. We have a totally different game style, but obviously
That's an understatement.
Yeah, obviously I went to watch his games growing up, and that's why my favorite team was Bandits growing up.
Now, I know he's your idol, but is he the guy that had the most impact on your career? I was reading today that you started playing at 3 years old.
Yeah, obviously my dad had a big part of that. I also had a little brother that me and him always played backyard lacrosse, so those two are probably the most important to me. And obviously my mom driving me to practice and all that stuff, so got to thank all of them.
Sure. Excellent. So now we'll get into some of your best of series. So what was the best or most memorable goal you ever scored?
You know what? It would have had to been last year when we played Minnesota, and I'm almost positive I got the game-winning goal against them, and we won the game. And I blacked out, and it was so exciting with all the fans roaring in the face and stuff like that. I also scored a big one back in minor days, and it was a overtime winner. But for sure, like that NLL one was the most exciting.
Yeah, understandable. But glad that you touched on minor lacrosse. For those that don't know, even though Mr. Smith is quite the emerging transition threat for the Bandits, he is I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, the all-time leading scorer in Kitchener Waterloo Kodiak junior history, besting some pretty famous names like Ryan Benesh and Colin Doyle. Look at him smile. I have a feeling that might be right. Is that true? Something like 300 overall points, something like that?
That is true. I like bugging them about it. I see Ryan every day, Benesh every day. We go to the gym together, and I bug him about it all the time. We joke around with it, and I didn't really realize till obviously my 5th year, my coach kind of gave me the nod, and he was just like, "You did it." And I didn't know what he meant by that. I didn't think I was even close to those two players. They're amazing players, obviously. I also looked up to them growing up, so it was an amazing goal for myself, and got to thank my teammates, obviously, for helping me do that. But yeah, it was exciting for sure.
Yeah, so you have a past as a goal scorer, but now you're starting to emerge a little bit more out of the back door this season. So that's a good segue to the next question. And obviously Connor's most hated question each week. What do you have any memorable fights that you've been a part of?
Fights? No, I'm not much of a fighter, to be honest. There's been a few scrums here and there, but not too much. My last year, my junior career, which is this past year, there's a guy picking on my brother. We played junior together, so it was pretty exciting. But the guy was picking on my brother, and I kind of got into it with him. And then I look over, and my brother's fighting this other guy. So it was pretty cool doing that. But other than
Nice.
that, I'm not much of a fighter. Billy takes all the anger out,
I
and
was just gonna
I'm the
say,
one behind him.
nice to have a tough cousin like that. You know?
Exactly. Nobody really messes around.
Right. Well, I guess you and your brother won't be confused with the Bash brothers from Mighty Ducks fame. So let's transition to some of that. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, 21 Jump Street for sure. It's hilarious. I could watch it over and over again.
The new one. I just saw that. That was pretty good. I like that one.
Yeah.
What about your favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? I like Big Bang Theory. I like Two and a Half Men. That's a good one.
Nice.
For the
Stay
most
in
part,
network. That's good.
yeah, those are the two main ones.
Okay. Now, is there any specific food that you got to eat pregame, or do you basically eat whatever they feed you?
You know what? I eat whatever they feed me, but I'm a big fan of the white sauce instead of the red. I'm a big rosé fan, so like I like to mix both, but I'm a big fan of the white sauce.
By the white sauce, you mean Alfredo?
Exactly.
Okay. I'm shocked to hear that you'd be eating that before a game.
I
But
know,
make
and
sure,
everybody says that, and they're like, that's probably the
yeah,
worst thing to eat before a game, but I love it. And
literally the worst thing possible.
I know it clogs up your stomach, but I'm young, so it doesn't really affect me too much. So
I was going to say that makes your exploits even more impressive. Last one from me before I turn it over to my bud Connor. And this is an interesting one. I've heard some pretty varied answers out of you Canucks. What's your favorite non-lacrosse sports team?
non-lacrosse sports team. I like the Ottawa Senators for hockey for the NHL. Big fan of them.
Nice.
Which is weird because
Okay.
everybody likes the Toronto Maple Leafs for the hockey.
Curtis
But
Dixon, he's with you, man.
I'm a big fan of the Ottawa Senators.
Nice.
Nice. Why do you wear number 92?
92. I was born 92. It was a hard choice for me to pick a number coming in. My favorite number growing up was number 3. I wore that all growing up, but obviously Billy D had that, so I kind of went with a different thing, and I went with my age 1992. So yeah.
So Mark did a little digging and found out you may have played football in high school. What number did you wear playing football?
You know what? I wore 88 when I was a receiver, and then I changed. I just got a jersey handed to me, number 40, which is a random number for being. I was a quarterback. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I was a quarterback, and I wore number 40, which is a little bit different. But it wasn't. I didn't really care what number I wore, to be honest. In football, it wasn't a big thing.
Nice. Mark is probably going to talk to you a little bit about that more later, I would think. What other sports did you play growing up as a kid?
I grew up playing pretty much every sport. I started off playing basketball, t-ball. I played a little bit of football. I played hockey and lacrosse were my two main ones. I played hockey in the winter and lacrosse in the summer. I played volleyball in high school. I did track in high school. The only sports I didn't really play was soccer, so I played pretty much everything. I played basketball as well.
Basketball as well.
Yeah.
Which of those do you
it's like
feel
the
like
whole Olympics.
translates? Yeah, right.
What's that?
Which of those translates the best? Back to lacrosse. If you had to
You
pick
know
one.
what? That's a tough one. I'd have to say football with like all the cuts and stuff and all the running. I'd have to say football. Like my footwork is a lot better from that.
Excellent. And what about going down to play in college? Did you take any looks there? Where were you thinking about going?
Yeah, I had a lot of scholarships to different colleges, Maryland, Georgetown, Syracuse, and obviously a lot of different ones. But I don't know. I kind of regret not going, to be honest. But at the same time, I love where I'm at right now, and I plan on going back to school in Canada as well. So I'm happy where I'm at. I like box lacrosse. I grew up played box lacrosse more than field lacrosse, so I'm a big fan. So yeah.
Excellent.
That's
Good to hear that you're still pursuing the academics.
Yeah, I can't let that go. My mom's in my ear all the time saying, "Don't forget about it. Like lacrosse isn't always going to be there for you." So it's in my ear. So we'll see.
Ah, she's right.
No, I know.
Yeah, man, no question. But we're very happy that you're treating us with your exploits, even if they're loaded down with Alfredo sauce. And before we continue, because we got a couple more questions for Dhane, I'd like to give a shout out to some of our viewers that are checking in. We got Anthony Garcia, we see you, Jack Henderson, Cronfile. Apparently, he's a huge fan. Just want to say shout out to everybody and reminder, continue to get your questions in via the YouTube comment feed. You can get at us on Twitter using hashtag NLL Live, or if you prefer, you can get at us on the Lacrosse Network's Facebook page. So please keep your comments coming in. We got a couple more questions here for you, Dhane. If you could have lunch with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
That's a tough one.
It's supposed to be.
I don't even know, to tell you the truth.
Some popular ones have been some athletes like Muhammad Ali and Gretzky. I don't think we've gotten any historical figures yet.
I'm trying to think. Wayne Gretzky would be a good one, but.
What about Alexander Daig, famous #1 pick for the Iowa Senators, right?
Yeah, I like a lot of the Ottawa Senators. I'm a big fan of Erik Karlsson at the moment, so maybe him. I guess I'd go with him right now because I can't think of anything off my head, top of the head.
That's fine. If you ever come upon it, you can interrupt us and come with
it. All right, sounds good.
Dhane, you got any nicknames that the people need to know about? Anything public appropriate?
I get the Great Dane, obviously, from all the fans a lot. The big one that a lot of people call me, and it started in my minor career, well, my junior career, sorry, in Whitby, Ontario. The announcer my name is spelled Dhane, so the announcer randomly called me Dhane, and it kind of just stuck, like he spelled every letter in my name, and it kind of just stuck, and everybody calls me Dhane, so that's a big one.
Well, with that tan you're rocking right now, I'm sure he might have been trying to mistake you. Jeez.
Exactly.
You got have you ever worked any non-lacrosse jobs?
Non-lacrosse jobs. Yeah, I worked. My favorite job growing up would have been working at the golf course. I worked there for a few years, and I loved it because I'm a big fan of golf, and I'm not the greatest at it, but I like to try. So it was good because it was easy. I just turn on the sprinklers during the day and hit the balls during as I was working. So it was a nice job.
Nice. It sounds like you were the Bill Murray character in Caddyshack. I could see that role fitting you pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
Pesky Gophers, right?
Yeah.
Who's the toughest opponent that you've had to go against individually? Maybe a player. I know you're playing more defense these days. Who's an offensive player who's really been tough for you to mark up?
Obviously Cody Jamieson. He's a strong lefty. I have to guard all the lefties, so for the most part, I try to match up against the lefties because it's easier to defend for me. Cody Jamieson's for sure the hardest. He might be small, but he's a bigger dude, and he's quick as well. So you can't really let him have a first step, or he'll be past you in a second, and he knows how to bury the ball. So yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a popular answer, and we've had a front row seat to him dipping that front shoulder on the Lacrosse Network, so that's understandable. What about the toughest team? It doesn't necessarily have to be in the NLL, because like I said, I know you've only been in the league for a short time. Who's a team, either in MLL or during your summer ball that's really been a tough out for you?
In the NLL, it's hard to say. Every team's pretty tough for the most part. I'm not a big fan of playing in Rochester in their barn because it's smaller. I feel it's smaller, and their defense is bigger, so they're really compact, and it's hard to get in the middle. In summer ball, it'd for sure be Six Nations. They have a lot of mean defenders, Rory Smith, Billy D. Smith, Sid Smith. They have a lot of big, mean guys, and they're a hard team to play against.
So when you say that it's smaller in Rochester, do you mean that you feel the actual confines of the rink are smaller?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure about what it is, but I think the layout or something where the lines are, they just kind of compact, and it just seems like a smaller rink to me. I'm not too sure if it is, but that's how it feels.
Well, I know the league is usually tuning in, so hopefully we can get somebody on that, maybe confirm that for us. Here's an interesting one for you. Name one. What's one word to describe you, either as a person or as an athlete?
Um, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. I'm always happy. I'm always smiling around the room. Like I have a smile on my face constantly for sure. That's a big thing. I like to joke around a lot, and I can take a joke as well. So I'm that guy. I'm that guy kind of.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
apparently we had that video, and all the bandits named me as the most emotional guy on the team. So I don't know if that's true, but
Emotional.
yeah,
Okay.
emotional. So the most likely to cry at a movie apparently was me. So
Oh, that was you.
yeah, that was me. So I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Didn't quite expect that, but no doubt. Here's one for you. If you could change one thing about the NLL, whether it's a rule or travel or whatever it is, if you could change one thing, what would it be?
You know what? That's a tough one. Everything's going pretty good. I've only been in the league 1 or 2 years, so I'm not really keen on a lot of things. I'm not a big fan of the new rule that they put in this year for the playoffs situation. How I'm not really too sure how it's laid out, but I'm pretty sure it's best 2 out of 3, but the third game's 10 minutes or something like that. And I'm not a big fan of that, especially if it's it's 1-1 and it's going to the third game. We fought so hard. I feel like we deserve a full out game. So that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, totally understandable. Connor and I have talked about that a couple times, especially when we were, leading into the season, talking about what that would really mean for people. It's kind of tough to have your season decided on a 10-minute game. So hopefully, if and when you guys make it to the championship game, you'll take care of business pretty early on and not leave it up to that 10-minute mini game that people are concerned about. Last lacrosse kind of oriented question for you, and then we'll transition to some of our games from last week and get into a bunch of our viewer questions. And I know people are chomping at the bit to ask of you. What's your favorite on-field, as in field lacrosse? I know you played a little bit of field lacrosse. What's your favorite on-field memory, and then your favorite on-floor memory being box lacrosse?
On-field memory would have been for sure playing. I played Team Ontario growing up, which was playing with the best Ontario players, and it was a national championship. Like we would play against BC, Team Saskatchewan, Team Manitoba, all those teams, and we play against them for a tournament, and obviously the winner was gold. And I played in that for 3 years, and we won all 3 years. And it was close games against BC every year. It was close games, but that was probably most memorable for field lacrosse wise. And then
Sure. Sorry, box lacrosse.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to know what your best box lacrosse memory was.
Oh, that's a tough one for sure. You know what? I growing up, you know what? I'll tell you the truth. We didn't win much growing up in Kitchener. I didn't really win too much, but for sure this year, sticking it out in Kitchener, playing with all my buddies and playing in Kitchener, we made playoffs this year. And it was we gave Six Nations a run. We didn't obviously beat them; they're the number one team, but we gave them a run for their money, and I felt like they were kind of worried about us. And we also beat them one of the games, and it felt like we won it all. So that was a big part of my junior career for sure.
That's awesome, and for those viewers that don't know what Dhane is talking about, this past summer he played his last season of junior lacrosse for the Kitchener Waterloo Kodiaks, and they lost in the first round to an always tough Six Nations team. That actually leads to a good question that I gotta ask before we get out of here. What the heck is a Kodiak?
You know what? A Kodiak's a bear. Our junior team is actually the Braves, the Junior A Braves. Kitchener Waterloo Junior Braves, but the Kodiaks is the bear. Is a bear, and that's our senior team. And I'm not sure where they came with that, but yeah, it's a bear.
Well, you're the first guy who's actually known what his summer team's mascot is. We usually got guys on here from the Salmon Bellies or the Berards or whatever other crazy names you Canucks seem to pull out of your hats. So hats off for you to actually knowing what your mascot is. That's a step in the right direction. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this because we've gotten some good answers, and this will be my last one before we talk about the games. What about pregame music? There's been a reoccurring theme that a lot of the teams, especially the Canadian NLL teams, have had some pretty interesting pump-up music, a lot of terrible pop music. Is there anything specific that the Bandits are playing these days?
That's a tough one. After when we go out of the rink, we listen to "Bring 'Em Out" by T.I. We listen to that a lot. We change it up all the time. We listen to before the game as well. Ray Lewis's speech that he used. I forget where he used it, but we listen to that before the game, and that pumps us up. But other than that, we kind of go all over the map. We don't have really specific songs.
Wow, that's a unique answer. That's interesting that you guys would listen to a pregame speech other than your coaches, but I know the speech that you're talking about, definitely something to check out on YouTube for those of you that haven't seen it. You can't help but get pumped up listening to that, so I certainly understand. Thanks for getting through the lightning round with us. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. But let's bring my man Connor back in, and let's talk about some of the somewhat abbreviated NLL slate that we had last week. I think we had 4 or 5 teams on the bye, including Mr. Smith's own Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, no doubt. It was not a huge weekend of action, but the action that we did get was excellent. Minnesota almost knocked off Toronto. Toronto ended up winning 14-12. That was played at the Air Canada Center. You know, Minnesota creeping in, getting closer with the good teams. Good to see. Calgary 11-10 over Rochester. Huge game. Just a really big win. Out at the Scotiabank Saddledome. That's a big one for Calgary, no question about it. And then the next day, though, we actually did see Minnesota pick up the W in a tight game, 15-14 over the Wings at the Wells Fargo Center. Pretty cool. Pretty cool to see the Swarm pulling it together. I'm curious to see if they can, make it work for the rest of the year. But what do you think about the week's action? Only 3 games, like you said, 4 guys sitting out on the sidelines not playing.
Yeah, it's interesting that with so many teams not playing last weekend, we had one team, the Swarm, play 2 games. And we've kind of talked about them ad nauseum this year, specifically talking about how bad they've been compared to where a lot of pundits, including myself, thought that they were going to be an outstanding team coming into the season. I think this weekend they certainly acquitted themselves well. It was tough to get the loss in Toronto, but they really turned it around on Sunday, fought hard, came back, and Jordan McIntosh. I mean, he's been a beast, in a short time in the league, but he's really coming into his own and shown that he has the ability to put a team on his back. So I was happy with what what they were able to do this weekend. It would have been better if they got 2 wins, but I got to think it's too little, too late. What did you think about their play?
Yeah, I mean, to address that first point about it being too little, too late, I certainly think that that's possible. Because, I think you also would need a fall from grace for some of these other consistent performers, and I don't know that we're going to see that. But then the other point, I mean, this is a good year for Minnesota, and it's tough to say that with all these losses piling up. But I think they've got an extremely solid core of young guys. They can bring all these guys back next year. As you were saying, Jordan McIntosh has just been really just a fantastic standout player once again. I'm a huge fan. I think he's a good key for them. So I think they've got pieces they can do well in the future, and it's good to see them getting wins. But as long as they're kind of keeping those games tight, I mean, I think next year could be a really different scenario for them. But do I think they're looking towards next year a little bit? Yeah, I mean, it's got to be hard not to be, right?
Yeah, no question. I think the big issue for them is trying to get some consistency on both ends. It seems that at the beginning of the year, maybe their offense came out like gangbusters, and their defense needed some time to gel. Or actually, I'm sorry, the reverse of that. Their defense was playing well to start, and it's taking their offense some time. And now their offense is scoring, but they seem to be giving up a bunch more goals than they were to start. So hopefully they can get themselves on the same page. Hey, Dane, I know it's tough to talk about other teams in the league. What have you thought about what you've seen about Minnesota this year?
They're obviously a young team. They've always been a young team, so it was kind of surprising them coming out a little slow. But I feel like season's still early for any team. Anything can happen. Obviously, you guys are talking about it's going to be hard to do, obviously, because all the teams are doing well. But everything's so close. It's hard to say. They're really playing well now. But yeah, you got to pull a full 60. We did the same thing. If our defense wasn't playing well one game, our offense was, and it's hard to pull a full 60 together. But I feel like they could. So we'll see. We can't just take them easily. We play them next week. So just because their record doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're happy to be playing them coming off of what's going to be a 2-week bye, and that'll be an interesting game because the guy that's really helped spearhead the Bandits' resurgence this year, Ryan Benesh, we were talking about a summer teammate and a workout partner of yours. I know the Swarm are really missing him. Can you give us some insight? Is he really gearing up? Is he excited to see them in 2 weeks?
Yeah, he's obviously probably really excited to play them. Who obviously traded him away, and you know what? He's a great player. He's helped us out so much, and I'm surprised that any team would want to trade him away. He's a great guy, great player, and I'm looking forward to him putting on a show.
Yeah. So before we get to the game of the weekend, which was Calgary and Rochester, which I gotta toot my own horn here. Me and Dave Walls last week, we kind of saw this one coming. We like Calgary at home, but before we talk about them, let's talk about Toronto and Philly real quick, Connor. I mean, you've always been a Toronto champion. It was good to see them beat the Swarm in what I thought could have been a trap game for them.
Talk about Toronto in that game. Yeah, I mean, once again, your man Garrett Billings coming up pretty big. I think he had 9 assists, something like that.
Yeah.
Listen,
regular week.
Yeah, regular week, no big deal. But then they get scoring from other guys. LeBlanc had 5, Sanderson had 6, Casey Burns had 2. Hellier had 3 points, Doyle had 4 points. I mean, they're getting numbers from all over the place, which is great.
Yeah.
But the kind of concern that Toronto has to have right now is that they're 2-4 in the division. So while they're sitting in that third place spot, I mean, I think you have to be able to beat your division teams. And, that's a note back to Minnesota, if you would. I mean, they're 2-7, but they're 2-3 in division. So 4 of their losses are out west. So you do have to be able to win in division. I think that's key. You see it in Buffalo, you see it in Rochester, you see it in Edmonton. I think even Calgary is doing all right. So, I think that's a key difference maker. And right now, Toronto has not been able to win more than a third of their games in the East.
Yeah, you know what? I got to be honest. So I like Toronto. In that last playoff spot behind Rochester and the Bandits. But we do have an interesting viewer question coming in, and I got to give shout out to Riley Paul. We see you. We will be getting to some viewer questions quickly. But Scott Lugley just checked in, and he says with 2 losses by Toronto this week, which he feels is likely, I'd probably disagree with that to an extent, Philadelphia and Minnesota will both be in the thick of the playoff chase. Yeah, that's true to an extent, but like I just said, Scott, I don't necessarily see that coming. Do you, Connor?
Well, I mean, even if they lose the 2 games, that puts them at 4-6. Philadelphia would still be a game behind them at 3-7. I don't love Toronto to lose 3 or 4 games in a row. Minnesota, again, they're already at 2-7. Yes, if they lost these 2 games this weekend, which it sounds like you and I may disagree in our predictions a little bit because I don't know that I have them winning either of them.
Okay.
Yeah, if they lose both those games, if they lose both those games, I mean, it's a race again, right? Mm-hmm. But again, I don't like Toronto to lose 2 and then lose 2 more, and I think that's what it would take. So I think that's the real difference maker. That there's a 2 or 2.5 game cushion right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it starts with our guest from last week. Nick Rose has really been acquitting himself well. It's been nice to see their big guns, the Billings, the Doyles, the Sandersons of the world, scoring mondo points each week. I mean, for the past couple of weeks, since they had a little bit of a lull, they've really been coming out like gangbusters, scoring 4+ points each of them, which has been key. But actually, the guy that I really love on the Rock, and a guy that I didn't necessarily give his due, earlier this season, is Jesse Gamble, a guy that I know Dhane has some familiarity with. To me, he's really emerged as a top flight transition guy. He's always in the thick of things. Dane, what do you think about Jesse? I know that you guys, I think, have played together in the past. Has he informed some of your transition-based style that we're seeing this year coming out of the back end? What have you taken from him?
I've for sure taken from him because I played with him and I started off playing obviously just offense, and I watched him play and it was just amazing. He's one of the fastest players in the NLL for sure, and he might be small, but he's a strong guy. If you saw him out of his equipment, he's a built player, and he's a really good defender as well. And that's where I kind of base my game off of, because I watch him play and I watch him how he plays great defense, and it leads to offensive chances, and that's the main thing coming out the back door for myself, and I found that's the game a lot.
Yeah, and we'll certainly talk about that in a second. I know we got some viewers wanting to talk about your transition, being more of a defensive-oriented guy this year for the Bandits. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about Philly real quick before we talk about the game of the weekend. Connor, I know Dave Walls is probably watching a little peeved at the Wings giving up a pretty sizable lead there to the Swarm. What do you think the deal is for the Wings? I mean, we both were surprised by them early in the season. What do they have to do to get back into the thick of things, like Scott Ludwig so confidently thinks that they will be?
Well, I think that they just need to kind of clean up what they've been doing. They are athletic and physical on D. They're able to press out. They're able to push the ball in transition. I think their offense is extremely improved from where they were. They still got a guy like Crowley, and Crowley for me maybe wasn't delivering as much early on as you wanted to see him, and then he has 10 points last weekend. So you don't know what Philadelphia is capable of. I think that they could do quite a bit. I like Philly. I like them more than I did at the beginning of the year when I had them in the doghouse. I thought there was going to be a lot of turnover, and they weren't going to be able to overcome that. But you add in new guys, Kaliski. Okay, great. He's making plays literally from the first offensive possession. He's making plays for Philly, and then you get a kid like John Ranigan stepping in, turning into a really solid defender, assisting goals, pushing transition, using his athleticism. Philly's a dangerous team. So I do like the Wings late. I think it is fair to say that they could pull their way back into it. I don't think that they necessarily will. I think that those other three teams are going to pull away a little bit, but I have been wrong before. So I guess we'll see about that one.
True, and we got Upstate Dies checking in. Thanks for the comment. According to Upstate Dies, what Philly needs to do is he says, imagine if the Wings could win a faceoff. And he says #trade for a Snyder, which I can't help but giggle at. But at the same time, I got to say, CJ Costabile is not the worst option in the world, as far as faceoff guys go.
Well,
I don't necessarily think that's their problem.
Mike Poppleton went 13 for 27, I think, last weekend. So
right,
he could be an answer in some regards because Minnesota's not too bad in that department either.
No, Jordan McIntosh, other than the Snyders who, Update Dies was just pointing out, I think he's, probably the third best guy in the league, I'd say. But let's get to the last game of the weekend. What turned out to be a great affair out in Calgary, where the Roughnecks winning what almost seemed to be a must-win game against Rochester. Dane, I'm sure you like to see the Nighthawks go down. Helps your position with the Bandits a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to see anything from this game? What are your thoughts on what happened?
Actually, you know what? I was on vacation at that point, but we were kind of watching it, to be honest, on YouTube back at our hotel, and that's a big one.
While you're on vacation, that's dedication.
Yeah,
right?
I know. We had to take a little break, so why not watch some lacrosse? But we watched it, and that's a big one for Calgary being obviously our rival, Rochester, who's fighting for first place spot with us. So it was nice. It was a really close game too, and those are the games that you like to watch. So it was a nice outcome for us, and yeah.
Yeah, no, understandable. and you're right, it was a great game to watch, really hard fought, and it played to both of their styles. I think it got to a score where Calgary wanted to be, in double digits, where I thought that Rochester, certainly wanted to keep the game more in single digits to have a chance to win. Connor, what are your thoughts on the game?
Well, I thought, both of you remarking that it was a fun game to watch is really accurate. And I thought that one of the best things about it was the diversity of the scoring. I mean, everybody was getting in on the action. Yes, you had Cody Jamieson with 7 points, but 5 of those were assists, and those kind of tend to work their way in there for a lot of players. But a lot of other guys are putting up 2-3 points. I mean, everybody for Rochester kind of showed up to get them to 10. Everybody from Calgary showed up to get them to 10. It was a lot of fun, really intense, and I think it shows how good Calgary is. I mean, they've been believing that they're good and that good all year. But maybe it's time for the rest of us to take note.
Yeah, no question. And shout out to our guest from 2 weeks ago, Curtis Dixon. Good to see him really rounding back in his form, scoring tons of goals. He seems like he's going to be a real threat down the stretch, as is the rest of that potent offense. So I can't wait to watch what always seems to be my league pass team, the Calgary Roughnecks. But let's transition to some of our viewer questions. We got a lot of people checking in, and a reminder, thanks for doing that, guys. You can get at us with hashtag NLL Live. The comments feed of the YouTube page. We're obviously checking that out. As you see, we're shouting you out during the show. Dhane, we got a couple for you from Prodigy Launch. They say, Dhane is the man, which is always good. What's your favorite part about being a part of the Bandits, or favorite thing about being part of the Bandits?
For sure, the group of guys. We have a great group of guys. I love that we have a bunch of vets on the team. They showed me the way, like growing up, obviously watching all those players and getting to play with John Tavares, a legend, and it's awesome. So learning a lot, and that's the most important. Obviously, the fans are great there. We get the most fans probably in the league, and it's nice to have them cheering for us every night, win or lose. So it's good to have them.
Yeah, that's interesting, and you bring up John Tavares, and we'll certainly ask you in a second some of the wisdom or tips that he has imparted to you. But I got a quote from John Tavares who says that the defense and the transition play has been 100% better, and that's the reason for the turnaround. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? Yeah, we didn't have much of that last year, and that was a big downfall for us. This year, that's how we're winning games. The offense are obviously doing their part and putting some goals, but we also need some out the back door. And if you've seen the games, Priolo's even chipping in, and he's he might not have the best hands in the league, but he's getting in there and he's getting his chances and he's bearing on his chances. Andrew Watt was a huge pickup for us, Kitchener boy as well, and he's helped us out a lot. He's injured right now, but he'll be good. One of our first draft picks this year, Mitch Wild, coming in his last game, and he played really well as well. So it's nice having some guys that will run the floor with me as well, and we're bearing on our chances, and that's helping getting 2 or 3 goals a game.
Yeah, and I'm really happy you brought up Steve Priolo, because he's a guy that I look at kind of as a dark horse candidate for Defender of the Year right now. I think the two guys out in Edmonton may have a pretty strong stranglehold on that award, but Priolo has really done a great job this season, and if it weren't for Rubish and Corbeil, he would certainly be deserving of the hardware. A couple more questions for you. Here's an interesting one, talking about your love of Kitchener. We got Matthew 715 checking in. After playing your final year juniors in Kitchener and seeing the talent coming up, who will pick up the loss of all your points? And we talked about you being the leading scorer there. He asked, is it going to be Coutier or is it going to be Prince? What do you think?
You know what? I feel like we have a great group of young guys. Our defense is really well, and our goaltending is really well. Obviously, our loss of myself and Masterson is a little bit big, but I feel like there will be a lot of guys. Chris Cloutier is a great player. He puts up the points. He can score when he wants to, for sure. He's still young, but he's really good. Kyle Jackson, our captain, he goes to Michigan University right now, and if you watch him play, he's one of the best players I've ever seen play. Hands-wise, Barry's inside, and he's a really good. He'll lead by example, and I feel like my brother will step up this year a lot more than he did last year, get me out of his shadows, and he'll play his game. So I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah, for sure. And now the obligatory section where we get more towards the gear part of the show. We got loyal viewers, East Coast Dies and East Coast Mesh, Greg and the boys down there checking in. They want to know about your stick. Do you have your stick handy, Dhane?
Yes, I do. This is the stick they did up for me.
That's why they want to know about it.
A little product placement. There we go.
They did
Look at that beaut.
They did this one up for me, and I've been working on it in practice. My other one broke, and I reached out to them, and they did a great job on it, and I'm excited to hopefully get it going in the next few weeks. My one that I've been using broke kind of, so I've been waiting for it to break completely because it's been doing a good job lately, so I don't want to switch it up. But at the same time, I'm excited to use the sticks that Grunt Lacrosse and East Coast Eyes did for me.
Yeah.
Dane, can you put that stick back up there and
Yep.
just talk about what you're looking for in a pocket, whether it's super deep, a lot of whip, a lot of hold. I mean, surprise people with your preferences.
All right, well, I like to have a high pocket. It doesn't have to be big at all, but it needs to have hold. I usually use 4 shooters, so it comes out quick. And that's basically it. I like, it doesn't have to be the biggest pocket, but as long as it stays in there as best as possible, that's what I like. Obviously, top pocket helps my release be a little bit quicker than having it a little bit lower. Other than that, I use a charge 2 high school and a charge. Those are my go-to lacrosse heads that I like to use. So yeah.
So what do you think about the Under Armour product? I know it's been a transition for some of the players switching from Reebok to Under Armour. It looks like you got an Under Armour shirt on right there.
Yeah, I recently got sponsored by Under Armour personally, and it was honestly a dream come true having them reach out to me. So it's all I wear pretty much. So it's nice. But yeah, I love their equipment, to be honest. Their equipment's so comfortable. Their heads and shafts. It's not hard to adapt to anything really. They're all similar to heads that you probably used in the past or shafts that you used in the past. I haven't had any problems. I found the ones I've liked. So so far so good.
Now, what about mesh? Because obviously we just fielded the question from East Coast Dyes and East Coast Mesh, and they were asking about the black mesh. I know a lot of box guys really favor soft mesh as opposed to the harder mesh that a lot of field guys like Connor and I use. What type of mesh do you use in your stick, and have you transitioned back and forth? And what are your thoughts on traditional strength?
I use a soft mesh recently. The head I use right now is this one, and it's a softer mesh. Same idea for shooters. I'm trying to adapt to the East Coast because I've heard so many great things about it, and that's what I'm looking for to use. But it's hard to go right into a different kind of thing when I've been using soft mesh my whole life. But at the same time, if you work in the East Coast dyes, it gets softer and it works really well as well. So I've heard. The traditional, not many guys use that in the league anymore, but I've heard many things. I wouldn't mind trying it out, but it's hard to find a certain guy that can string it like that. So we'll see.
You may or may not be talking to one of those guys.
Oh. I can vouch. He's put together some good ones for me in our time. That's for sure.
Yeah, wouldn't mind bringing that back.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get you set up. We got a couple more questions coming in for you. We got Joe Winslow with an interesting question. He wants to know, what do you think of Kevin Brownell?
You know what? He's a good guy. I love him. We both went on vacation the past week together. Actually, and I've learned
nice.
a lot about him. He's a good guy. He's a great player too. He's a underrated defender for sure. He's kind of nagging an injury right now, but when he's healthy, he's a really quick player. He can score when he wants to. He can play on both ends of the floor, and yeah, he's for sure underrated. And I'm excited to see him continue how good he's been playing recently.
Yeah, that's interesting. So tell us a little bit more about this vacation. It sounds like the whole Bandits team went down to Mexico. You got the whole team bonding down there. What's the deal?
Yeah, it was kind of scary, to be honest, to ask Troy, accordingly, our coach, if we could go on vacation. We kind of did it last minute as well, so we were kind of scared about that. But yeah, we went down, 4 of us, me, Aaron Wilson, Brownell, and Kevin Brownell, and David Brock, and we had a great time, obviously. The nightlife was really cool, and it was relaxing on the beach. We stayed at a pretty nice resort, and I'd for sure go back there, Cancun. So I'd recommend going there if you want to go on vacation. So nice.
Yeah, you know what? Who needs college? spring break, baby.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of kids there down there around my age. Aaron Wilson and David Brock kind of fell out of place where me and Kevin Brownell fit right in, so it was nice.
What can you talk a little bit about that? We talked about it before the show, but talk about this long break. Talk about the bye weeks. How hard is that? Are the concerns about coming back. I mean, what kind of stress does that put on your franchise, especially at a key point in the season?
You know what? It's really tough. I've never gone through this, obviously, and I don't think many guys have. It's nice for the older guys on our team, John Tavares, Sean Williams, and stuff like that, resting up their bodies. And if anybody had nagging injuries, it's nice for anybody to rest it up. But at the same time, it's hard going from a 6-2 hot start to taking a 2-week break for any team, regardless of it. So it's going to be hard. We're going to be tested early against Minnesota next week. We just have to stick in, I feel like, the first period, and we should be fine. Yeah.
Kind of getting your feet wet again, right? Like the 2 weeks off. I mean, is there a different mentality? You kind of flip it on each week, and then 3 weeks later, it's like, oh, it's culture shock.
Yeah, exactly. We're practicing hard. Troy's putting us through hard practices, so it's not like we're not doing anything like that. We have 3 practices before our game, and obviously we're working out during the week. Well, at least a few of the Kitchener guys are, and I'm sure everybody else is. It's nice for other guys to spend time with their family if they got away from that. So it's a nice little break, I guess, but at the same time, we'll see what happens.
Sure. So question for you, since we're talking about Coach Cordingley, he's obviously been a big part of why the Bandits have been able to turn around from what was a pretty dismal season last year. I mean, some people would argue that it was the worst in franchise history. Now that you're playing on the defensive end of the field, Coach Cordingley is kind of famous for playing a high pressure defensive system. What's it been like to play now under Coach Cordingley, and more specifically, figuring out your way on that defense?
Obviously, playing last year for Darius was unbelievable. He taught me so many things. Playing at the front door most likely, but obviously I have a different role with Troy, and I love where he put me. He came and talked to me the first day of training camp, and he's like, you might not like it, but I feel like you'll get more opportunities, and it's best for the team. And I understand that. I'm a young guy, and I feel like I can use my speed more out the back door than I do at the front door. So it's a nice role. I feel like Troy's given me so many opportunities that I really didn't have last year. Obviously, coming in as a rookie, I didn't expect that many chances, and especially being my second year, didn't expect to get this much floor time. I feel like I'm playing more than pretty much anybody on the floor, playing obviously on the defense, and he lets me stay on offense whenever I want. He's giving me the power play time as well, and so far so good. I love Troy as a coach. He tells you straight up, like he might be known as in the league as a screamer and all that stuff, and he will scream at you if you make a mistake, but at the same time he'll tell you if you did a great job the next shift, and he'll let you know that, and I like that about him.
Yeah, that's excellent. It's always good to get that encouragement and that constructive criticism. Really helps your game. So one thing that I've noticed coming out of you this year, we talk about how you're playing more defense, not just on ball defense, but I'm really noticing that you're getting in the lanes. You're really doing a great job of picking off passes and conscious about causing turnovers. Is that something that Coach Cordingley has kind of preached upon you? Is something to do, or is that just come naturally to you?
Well, the pressure defense is a huge part of our defense, and you know what? I like that. Before sitting back on defense, it's a little bit boring, and you let them come to you instead of going out and pressuring them. I get to use my speed, pressuring them, and they run away from me. So it's a little bit easier doing it that way. Obviously, my first game, it was kind of hard playing defense. I was afraid of making mistakes, but Troy talked to me about it and said, "Don't worry about making mistakes." And since that point, since the first or second game, I played good defense, and it's led to offensive chances, and obviously the defensive players like Steve Pearl, Billy D. Smith, all those players have helped me along the way as well.
Yeah, Connor and I, when we were watching the the first couple of games, and specifically he was at the game down in Philly. We were remarking about how it seems like you never come off the field for them. So, other than this awesome diet of Alfredo sauce, is there any type of training or anything specific that you've been doing to help you get this energy up to be able to play as much as you do? I mean, for me, you got to be logging the most on-floor minutes in the league on a per-game basis.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard that some of my friends come and watch me play, and they're like, "Oh, do you ever get off the floor?" And I feel like that. I'm a young kid, but it's definitely hard. I feel like I play as much as I did in junior. But during the week, I go to a place called Limitless Performance. It's a new gym. Adam DeJong runs it, and it's a great place to work out. A bunch of me, Aaron Wilson, Ryan Benesh, Glenn Bryan. We all go there, and Mike Poulin from actually the Calgary Roughnecks goes there as well, and we all work out together. It's a great place to work out. Obviously, it has turf in there for conditioning, and we lift weights obviously as well. It's hard to go during the season, but we stop in once, twice, 3 times. Obviously all week this week because we've had it off, but we usually go 2 or 3 times a week, and it's helped my performance out a lot. So I gotta thank that gym for sure, and obviously it's been great.
Yeah, well, we got Lacrosse Unlimited, the major retailer, checking in, and they, in this, I'm sure you're probably going to say that, the gym and that physical work that you're doing to get yourself prepared is your favorite thing to do to improve your game. But is there anything, maybe with the stick? Do you do any specific stick drills or wall ball, or is it more of the physical work that you were just talking about in the gym?
It's hard to do it in the winter for sure. I usually get out with my brother and toss it around when it gets nicer weather, but it's hard to do that in the winter. Our gym luckily has turf in it. It's not the biggest gym, but it is a good size. It has turf, and they have kind of a shooting gallery that I can shoot it on. So a bunch of us go and shoot there and do some footwork drills and all that stuff after our workouts. So it's perfect enough for me. So yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris Marshall, fellow TLN commentator, checking in. He wants to know, Dhane, what is your favorite place in Buffalo? I know you grew up being a Buffalo fan. I'm sure you've been around the city a bunch. What's your favorite place, whether it's a bar, a park, a restaurant, whatever, the library? What's your favorite place in Buffalo?
I still get lost around there all the time, but it's a great city for sure. I love it down there. I like going to the mall a lot, the Gallery Mall. Our mall in Ontario isn't as big as that, and it's huge. It's good to walk around. Obviously, the prices are better than in Canada, but it's a huge mall, and that's where we go a lot. So I don't mind going there.
Well, speaking of the mall and speaking of shopping, I know we were talking about Under Armour and your new sponsorship, and congratulations on that. That's great stuff.
Thank you.
Chris Marshall had an interesting question. He wanted to know, with that sponsorship, what's the best thing that they've been hooking you up with? And outside of the obvious lacrosse stuff, because let's get real, everybody in the league gets Under Armour stuff. Have they given you any cool cleats, like any of that Cam Newton stuff? What's the most unique piece that Under Armour's given you so far?
You know what? They've been so great with me. They've told me whatever I want, I can have it. So I've gotten a lot of clothes. My brothers and sisters have been pretty jealous.
The whole family's outfitted.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, they've been pretty jealous as well because I'm coming home with care packages of like 30 things at once and stuff like that. There's so many things. They just give me a bunch of clothes, and that's pretty much what I wear all the time. Obviously sticks and all that stuff. If I get it from my team, but they also give me extras and stuff so I can give out to my brother and all those fans that ask for them. So
the Kitchener crew, yeah, no doubt. Well, here's an interesting one. We got the league checking in. They always seem to come in with some great insights. So whoever is behind the National Lacrosse League Twitter feed, shout out to you. They want to know, what is Team Sweet versus Team Sav? I got to admit, we might have lost him. All righty. Well, while we're waiting for Dhane to check back in, we'll use this as a segue to talk about some of what we got coming up this week in the National Lacrosse League before we get to ask him about Team Sweet and Team Sav. Connor, we have a pretty ambitious slate. I know we touched on the Toronto Rock playing 2 games. Why don't you take us through some of the action?
Yeah, no question. We've got Toronto heading out, visiting undefeated Edmonton. That should be a fantastic game. Definitely looking forward to that one. like our commentator or our viewer was saying earlier, sorry, this is a losable game for Toronto, no question about it. Edmonton's looking really tough, and then the very next day, March 1st, flipping the month, they head and take on Calgary in the Saddle Dome. So I mean that's a really tough back-to-back set of games.
Ridiculous.
I would wish it on no team, but I think it's going to be a great test for Toronto to really see what they're made of. So, if they can hold on to that third spot, if they can win one of these games, if they can win both of these games, watch out. They're fully in it. So I think these are really important. And then that Rochester-Colorado game, also on the first, played out in Colorado, so maybe they won't have to worry about the tight confines of Rochester.
Sure.
Colorado came back. They strung together a bunch of wins right in a row, then dropped a game. Rochester dropped a game last weekend. So, I think this one's going to be hard fought. If it's low scoring, I like Rochester to kind of bounce back to form.
Yeah, understandable. Glad we have the man himself back, Dane. I see that you're muted, bud. You should probably click the button and take yourself mute because we got a couple people that came in with some great questions.
Sorry about that.
Nah, no worries, man. Understandable. Technical difficulties happen all the time, dude. Well, Chris Marshall with a funny little quip. He says, "Wow, good thing I asked." He wants to know if he can be part of the Under Armour family, or if not, at least Dane. So you got any openings in the Smith household?
Not much room here with a brother and sister. It's kind of getting crowded, but if there is any, I'll let them know.
Sure. And C. Marsh, since I know you're watching, how about that big BC victory over Chaptown, baby? A little bit of that.
Rubbing a little MCLA salt in the wounds.
Oh yeah. It's easy.
Like
yeah. But we were leaving on before we lost you for a second. The league was checking in, and hopefully they can respond to the controversy we were addressing before with the smaller Rochester arena. They were asking, what is Team Sweet versus Team Sav? I got to be honest, I have no idea what they're talking about.
That's a good question. It's pretty funny that me, Glenn Bryan, Aaron Wilson, and Ryan Bernesh just. Aaron Wilson thought of the thing, and it was a Team Sav thing. It was kind of a group name, just us four. We kind of made up a group. There's a lot behind it, but I'm not going to go in technology in it. But anyways, then David Brock and Kevin Brownell and Mitch Wild named their group Team Sav just because they're jealous of. I mean, Team Sweet.
This is clicks.
Just because they're jealous of. Our names, so it just kind of clicked. So we just kind of battle each other. It's pretty funny. All the guys on the team kind of make jokes about it. So it's kind of a weird thing.
Gotcha. So these sound like teenage girl type of clicks. I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah, exactly. We're young at heart.
Sure. Well, we have Connors and my sometime teammate Chris Valley checking in. He wants to know what are your hopes or what are your thoughts on making Team Canada? You were part of the tryout process, and what's going on there? Do you have any insight?
You know what? It's hard to say. There's so many different the ways that went around it. I'm not really too sure how the coaches went about it. But at the same time, I don't believe that it's going to be a good shot for me this year, but it was kind of more of a tryout for me in the next few years. It was trying to get my feet wet for the field lacrosse, and I'm still young. All those guys that got the invites were a lot older than me and kind of in their prime. So I think it was just to see me for the next one after Denver. So I'm pretty excited that I even got the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a good one anyway because you'll get to go to England for that one as opposed to Denver, where you get to go and play the Colorado Mammoth. What position did they have you playing? Were you I mean, I got to assume midfield, right? But were you playing more defense, more offense? And talk about what that experience was like at the Team Canada tryouts. I mean, you alluded to some of the veterans that Canada's got that are a little longer in the tooth, some of the legends of the game. Talk about what it was like to play with those guys out on the field as opposed to in the box.
Yeah, I played obviously midfield. They gave me a little try and attack as well, and I thought I had a good tryout, but I didn't expect really too much with all the players playing well. Obviously, they're a lot older than me, more experienced than me, so I did well, but also everybody else did well as well. So It was good, and obviously it was really nice to play against all the great players, best players in Canada playing field lacrosse, and it was nice competing for a spot. Obviously, seeing John Grant Jr. out there doing his thing, it was nice having all those guys play. So it was a good experience for me. It's whenever you get the chance to meet all those guys and play with them rather than against them, it's a nice experience.
That's pretty cool. I think you got a great perspective on it. And it's nice that you're already looking forward to those next World Championships. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
well, he was close. He was close to the under-19 team, too. So hopefully we get you on a Team Canada roster soon, right?
Yeah, third time's a charm.
Nice.
So if we could stick with that kind of field theme, actually, we got a great question coming in from Prodigy Launch. If you could go to college, what college would you want to go to, and would you play field lacrosse there if you could?
Obviously,
you're already a professional.
Obviously, if I went to college in the States, I'm not really too sure. I didn't really look into it as much as I would have liked to play. Didn't know where to play, but Syracuse obviously is a big name that I would have liked to play for, obviously. I like the color orange, obviously, playing for the Bandits, so it's nice. If I go back to school in Canada, I might play field lacrosse there as well, just the Ontario field lacrosse, and just to play. I love having a stick in my hand, so wherever I can play lacrosse, I will.
Nice. Do you have a favorite city? I think Adrenaline Lacrosse wanted to know a favorite city, a least favorite city. That's a good question.
Oh, you know what? I don't even know. That's a good
You can
one.
just say Mexico for your favorite city.
Oh, yeah, Mexico was unreal.
Yeah,
except for Sinaloa.
I recommend anybody who wants to go on vacation go to Mexico.
I've been. I can vouch. It's a very good time.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for this summer? What are you looking to get done?
This summer, I'm playing for the Kodiaks, obviously. There hasn't been really anything, trade rumors or anything like that, obviously. I'm excited to play with all those guys. Finally playing my full season as senior, obviously. Playing with Aaron Wilson, Ryan Banesh, and all those stuff, all the Kitchener guys. We're going to have a good young team as well. I wouldn't mind going out west for a year. It doesn't have to be this year, or eventually I wouldn't mind going experiencing it for a year. I've heard it's great things, and all the guys that I've talked to told me to go while I'm young, because when you're older, like, you start a family and you won't get the opportunity to go. So I'm looking forward to doing that at a certain point. I'm not really too sure when, but as of right now, I'm going to be a Kodiak. So yeah.
Well, nice. Upstate Dies is saying that you should go play for the New York Lizards, and famous enough, Major League Lacrosse has chimed in and said they agree. You should go play for the Lizards, or you should at least give the MLL a shot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know what? I when I was on vacation, I haven't even replied back, but I got an open tryout to Denver Outlaws, so I might give that a try. I think that's the only team that's contacted me this far, so we'll see how that goes. I'll obviously reach back to them, but right now I'm trying to focus on obviously my box season, so we'll see.
Well, I want to ask you too many more field questions then. One more. Did the Canada tryouts, did that stoke a fire for you at all, playing the field game again?
Yeah, you know what? I love lacrosse, period. But field lacrosse, it's always nice playing. It's obviously different than box, and I loved it growing up, but it wasn't my main sport. But like every chance I could play field lacrosse, I would. And it's a totally different game, but it helps you in different aspects for sure. So if I was a kid growing up, play both. That's what I do.
Good
Awesome.
answer. Play both. I like it.
We got one more question before we get towards a return to looking at our games coming up for this week. We got Eric Driscoll with an interesting question. I know we touched on some of your music, some of what you eat before the game, pretty famously at this point. And
I still can't believe that answer.
I know.
Alfredo, how?
To me, it really makes what Dhane does that much more impressive, because he's arguably the fastest guy in the league. I don't know if I go that far, but one of the fastest guys in the league. And like we said, he seems to be on the floor the whole time. And to do that on a stomach full of Alfredo, I mean, holy crap, man, you got you got some stomach. But so Eric Driscoll wants to know, what's your pregame ritual? Do you have to tape your stick a certain way? Do you have to sleep on a certain side of the bed? Are you superstitious at all? Anything like that?
You know what? I'm not. I'm not that type of guy. I do different things, different games for the most part. Like I'm not. I don't have a certain thing that I do. I do. You know what? I actually do sleep with my stick every night before the game. So I guess that is something I do. I feel
Fried
like
it out of you.
yeah, you treat your stick with respect, they'll treat you with respect, kind of thing. So I do that. I guess you can say I have a nap before a game, but I don't need one. Other than that, I do tape my stick a certain way, kind of with the X's, kind of a little bit grippy. But
I do the same thing.
yeah. So other than that, I don't really have any rituals or anything like that. I have a Beat headphones actually that I listen to, I guess, before the game, but nothing certain music, nothing like that. Just kind of zone out everything else. So yeah.
Right.
What are the most number of sticks you've ever slept with?
Only one. Oh, I only sleep with one.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's monogamous.
A one-stick man. Okay, just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah.
No, that's important. Now, Dane, I know you've been a lifelong Bandits fan. I'm sure it was tough for you coming into the league as a rookie last year and being part of, like we touched on before, arguably the toughest season in the history of the franchise. Talk about what the transition has been like between last year and this year. I know Steve Dietrich, who's also the GM of the Bandits, who's also a Kitchener guy. Played a big role in overhauling the team and bringing in a bunch of the Kitchener guys you talked about before. Other than the roster overhaul and the coaching change, which I guess I really can't mitigate that as much as I'm trying to in asking you the question. Other than that, what's really been the difference in the team?
You know what? Last year I felt like we kind of were complacent. Like if we played a team that was ahead of us, we'd be like going into the game being like unsure. This year we don't care who we play. We're going into the game saying we're going to win this game regardless of who it is. Doesn't matter who it is. We have a different attitude, which is huge for us. Coaching's obviously helped a lot. Our GM's helped bring in the certain guys that we've needed, and Cosmo has been the MVP of the league, I think, by far for us this year. He's been standing on his head game in and game out. Regardless if we lost the game, we played probably our worst game against Rochester in Rochester, and he only led in maybe 9 goals, under 10 goals, and it was a huge part of our team for sure. And then when he plays well, we play well. So I got to give him the biggest credit in the world, and he's been playing a lot better. So it's great.
And what have you seen out of Cosmo this year? Because you're right, he's certainly in the running for MVP. If not, I mean, we can't call him most improved player because he's been an All-Pro before. he's been a stud, but he obviously had a tough season last year, and clearly it wasn't all his fault because earlier in the show we were talking about the improved defense. But what are you seeing out of Cosmo? Is he more focused? Is his fitness better? Is he stringing his stick different? Is he wearing his lucky boxers? What's the deal? What's helping out the cause?
You know what? I'm not too sure. He's more focused, obviously, this year. I think the main thing, though, is he trusts in us and we trust in them. Our defense last year was kind of laid back, whatever. This year, he trusts in our pressure defense. If we're pressuring, if we get beat, he understands that, and he knows his role kind of more this year. So I feel like he trusts in us. That's the main thing, and we trust in him. So it's a good thing to have.
Sure. So I would be remiss, and since we're in the habit of really giving the viewers what they want, as much as I don't want to end on another field note, Nick Diotto, we see you, and just because we give viewer questions the ultimate love here, he wants to know if you could play for any MLL team, which one would you prefer? And then somebody else wants to know, have you thought about playing LXM?
You know what? Last year would have been the Nationals for sure because they're close to home. Obviously, that's the one team I grew up watching. I haven't been recently watching the MLL as much as I would have liked to. It's hard to view on TV or anything like that. It's hard to keep track of when you're playing.
CLN, baby, you got to tune in.
I know, I do. But yeah, it would have been the Nationals last year. I know they've changed this year to Florida, I believe. So
yep.
I don't really have a main team. I'm kind of like if there's guys that I know that I've played with or against, I kind of watch them more than others. But I don't have a main team as of right now. And what was the second question?
Chris Marshall checking in once again. He's more of a Cali guy anyway. He
Yep.
wants to know, would you ever play LXM?
You know what? I don't even know what LXM is.
Okay, best answer ever. And on that note, we'll stop talking about field lacrosse. We'll get right back to the lovely NLL. Unfortunately, the Bandits are out of action this week, so we can't really turn to Dhane for some insight into what his team is going to do this weekend. But let's get back to talking about some of the games that we were touching on when we lost Dhane for a second. So we were talking about Toronto. Dhane, I'm sure, is excited about this because Toronto has a tough slate this weekend. They got a real tough road trip going out to the he's shaking his head. He knows. They're going out to the far west coast, and they're playing the Edmonton Rush, the undefeated, seemingly unbeatable Edmonton Rush on Friday night. And then the following night, they're playing the hot Calgary Roughnecks, who took it to Rochester last week. Connor, we were talking about it before. I got to be honest. You know me. I love Edmonton. I was high on them coming into the season. But I kind of think that Toronto, even though Edmonton's coming off the bye, I think Toronto might be the team to spoil it. Is that crazy? Am I nuts?
No, I don't know that it's crazy at all. Edmonton's been doing a good job this year in keeping games very managed. They've put up 84 goals and only given up 54. So plus 30. And plus 30 is a solid differential. But when you're talking about having only scored 84 goals on offense, plus 30 is a fantastic differential. I mean, you're winning games by a great margin, a comfortable, controllable margin. Toronto is going to need to put up, at least 10, 11 goals, I think, to beat Edmonton. That's just
agreed.
That's going to be the way it is. And that's a big ask against the way that their defense is still playing.
Yeah, it's similar to what we were talking about with the Rochester-Calgary game last weekend. This is an instance where I think Toronto wants to get into double digits and needs to win, whereas Edmonton would certainly want to stay in single digits, and I think they need to in order to win. But to me, I think that for Toronto in particular, being a little bit of an older team, back-to-back, far on the road, they got the time difference to deal with, the travel to deal with, playing a team like Calgary that really gets up and down the field, which is just so tough. I mean, up and down the floor. I think they have a much better chance, as unbelievable as it sounds, against the Rush on Friday night than they do against the Roughnecks on Saturday. Dhane, I'm sure you're looking for the Rock to take a dive. What do you think about this tough road trip? I'm sure you don't envy it.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be tough for them, but at the same time, every team's so close. It's going to be hard. It's going to be good games to watch for sure. I feel like it'll be kind of a playoff atmosphere games for both games. Edmonton's obviously been really hot, so it's going to be tough to beat them. But you never know. Any team could take a dive at any point. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Sure. And to stop talking about Toronto for a second, we touched on it before when you were gone, Dhane. We were talking about Rochester heading out to Colorado. What do you think about that? And an interesting question for you, what about Casey Powell? I mean, obviously Connor and I grew up with Casey Powell. He's a legend to us. What do you think about his reemergence for the Mammoth this year? And do you think they can have a chance to rebound after what was a tough start for them?
That should be a good game, honestly. Colorado's a good team. It's hard for them to pull their defense and offense together to play one full game. Obviously, you've seen the past games, but like I said, any team could come to play. We'll see. It's a bigger floor if Rochester's going to Colorado, so they play a little bit different game when Rochester goes on a bigger floor. Obviously,
you're harping on that, huh?
I swear that the floor is different, but I'm not sure. I'm probably
we're gonna get to the bottom of this. Don't you worry. Yeah. We got connects.
Well, they don't have many fans. They don't have many seating arrangements there. So that's maybe why it's smaller. I feel like it's smaller, but
visually it throws you off.
Yeah, maybe that's why it is. I have no idea. But anyways, Casey Powell obviously is a good player. I met him last year for the first time at the bar after the game, and he's a really good player as well. I love watching him play. His first step is unbelievable, and I watched his first game coming back, and he just huge for the Colorado Mammoth.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about fans for a second and their alignment, and last one we're probably going to get to tonight. We got Bandit fan 11, Mike V, checking in. he wants to know, which do you prefer more, Dane? Do you like playing more offense or defense? I'm sure you more prefer offense considering your proclivity for scoring goals, but maybe you'll surprise us.
Yeah, you know what? It's growing up. Obviously, every player wants to play offense and all that stuff. But I've learned over the years, it starts on the defensive door. And you know what? If you don't have a good defense, then you can't win a game. So I feel like defense don't get the credit. Offense might get all the glory and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, we're all playing for the same reason, and that's a championship ring. So whatever way you can help the team, it doesn't matter how it is. So I feel like I like both now. I like both just the same. Playing transition is a huge part of my game now. So being able to play both is a huge thing for me.
And this will be a great transition to getting us out of the show tonight. The Bandits are famous for having a really rabid fan base, and I know that they're super energized with the resurgence of the team this year. Talk about how awesome it is for you to have been one of those Bandit fans and now being on the team, and kind of what they do to lift you guys up, because I watch the games and I can tell that they certainly have an impact. And how awesome is it to play in front of fans like that, probably unparalleled in the NLL.
Yeah, it's awesome. Game in and game out, they're always supporting us. Whether we lose by 15 or win by 15, they're always there for us. It's going from playing in Bandit land to going to a different rink. It's nothing the same. We get fans going to Rochester, and we could hear when we score. We can hear them louder than when they score. So it's nice having them travel. No matter what, I feel like wherever we go, Philadelphia, we saw fans. Colorado, we saw fans, and it's great. Wow. Wherever we go, there's fans, and they're the best fans in the league for sure. So the way they dress is awesome. You get a laugh out of it because they're all orange and black. Their faces are painted. They have their hair done. Like, everything's great about it. So I wouldn't want to play anywhere else. That's for sure.
Now, do they do anything like specific? Philly's got Chopper, and there are some other teams that have pretty specific either fan clubs or some of these characters that you alluded to that dress up. Does Buffalo have any specific core of fans like that? Anybody?
Yeah, we you know what? Like, everyone is pretty much like that kind of fan. Like,
they're not. You're right. It's crazy. Whenever they pan to the stands during the game, I'm like, who are these people?
We have so many. Like, there's so many people that stand out. Like, it's unbelievable. So we have so many things, and obviously our BOX chant when people go in the box. We have so many different chants, and that gets us going as well. So it's unbelievable how much they're in the game, just as much as we are.
Sure. Well, we were just talking about what's sure to be a decisive weekend for the Eastern Conference. We got Toronto playing 2 games out on the road. We got Rochester with a little bit of a tough task for themselves out in Colorado. So hopefully, some things shake themselves out. Either we'll see the top teams in the East, which right now is Rochester, obviously Mr. Smith's Buffalo Bandits, the Toronto Rock, followed by Philly and Minnesota. So if Philly and Minnesota want to get back into it, they'll be paying attention. And Buffalo, they want to prove their position. I'm sure they'll be watching Rochester and Toronto with bated breath. And reminder to everyone, please catch all that awesome NLL action on TLN. You can always catch the game live when they happen. You can catch that through the NLL website, NLL.com. They stream the games through there, or you can go right to the TLN YouTube page. And if you miss it during the live time, you can always catch up and catch the games during the week, like I do at lunchtime. You get a chance to get up on all the action you missed, and great chance to plug what's quickly becoming an awesome show, NLL Halftime with Dave Walls. And please be sure to tune in to the TLN Top 10 Plays. Dhane has seen himself on there before. I'm sure he's got something in him for next week when they go out to Minnesota. So no pressure or anything, bud, but we'll be watching for you.
All right, I'm excited to be on.
Good, man. Well, before we get out of here, any shout-outs for the family at home? It sounds like you have a sponsor that you might want to make happy. Anybody that you want to speak to before we go?
No, I just want to thank obviously all the fans that reach out to me this far, and obviously during my whole season I keep getting tweets from all the fans, and it's nice having that support. Obviously, I got to thank Under Armour again for everything they've done for me this far and for the next few years, and obviously the East Coast guys and Grant Lacrosse for doing my heads up. So thanks for. I hope the game grows that much better, and I hope to continue all this stuff, and I hope to be back on here soon.
Oh man, look at you! You make my job so easy. Great segue to the man behind the Grow the Game movement, Connor Wilson. I mean, right? How could I not? When you throw me the alley oop, I'm gonna dunk it. It's that easy. Connor, any shout outs? Any notices for the kids at home?
Yeah, I mean, hey, you got 3 great NLL games on this weekend. Check them out. It's well worth it. You'll learn something. You can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, you're definitely going to learn something. Thanks so much to Connor for being back. Dhane, we'd love to have you, man. It was great to have you back. I remember when we had you at the NLL draft. Connor, you'll probably remember this. How humble was he when all these guys are getting drafted? We're talking about what the Bandits are going to look like. And this guy was literally worried about making the team. I swear to God. That will always stick with me. I remember doing that show, and I left it being like, this guy was on the all-rookie team. And your feeling of never being satisfied was palpable. So Dhane, all the best to you. Continued success. Hopefully we can get a nutritionist up there to Buffalo. Maybe get you running up and down the field even faster. But thanks so much for coming on tonight. All the best to the Buffalo Bandits. That I'll be the first to say that I was one of the few to champion you guys in the preseason.
Thank you.
That's it for us on NLL Live this week. Thanks to our guest, Dhane Smith. We'll be looking forward to him playing next week and come back to find us in Week 11. That's all, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.